ones are erosion of mortar joints, peeling paint, cracking of walls, unstable foundations, roof defects, honeycombing, and dampness. So all of these defects, whatever defects you can find in a building, they are basically 8 factors that can contribute to the defects. The first one is because of the weather. The second one is because of the location of the building. Third one is construction materials, building types, maintenance, design during construction, lack of supervision, post-construction. Post-construction is the maintenance, right? So the first one is the climatic conditions, weather. So when buildings are exposed to the environment, you have rain, wind, snow, solar radiations, you can have, building, for example, sun, dia boleh jadikan paint tu makin lama makin buruk. Kalau orang cat warna hitam, kalau you perasan, after sometimes nanti paint tu jadi macam pudar, because they didn't use the right materials probably. Okay, so nowadays there are technologies, even paint suppliers ataupun manufacturers, they have upgraded the level or quality of paints. Kalau you perasan, we have external paints, we have internal paint. So kalau external paints, dia lebih tahan cuaca. Dekat dalam iklan ada tulis kan, tahan cuaca. So normally dekat luar tu kena hujan panas, kita tak nak bangunan tu after few months jadi buruk. We can have fungal stain, peeling paint, erosion of mortar joints. So in Malaysia, the weather is different than in the UK, because the UK, the humidity is lower than what we have here in Malaysia. And it's always hot and rainy in Malaysia as compared to the UK. Kalau it's hot, it's really, really hot. When it's cold, of course, you have snow. Location of the buildings. If the building is near the sea or rivers, then you can have common building defects. Fungus, for example, if you are near the sea because of the salt water. So the construction normally dalam dia punya material, you've learned materials, you have admixtures, right? So sometimes when it's very near to the sea, you may need to add some admixtures in your concrete so that it can hold the salt coming from the daripada laut. Water coming from the ground causes dampness, penetration, and structural instability. So that's why we have DPC, DPM, especially on the ground floor, so that the water won't seep through capillary. So air berjalan walaupun ke atas, air tu boleh berjalan sebab dia menyerap. Soluble salts which comes from the sea and together with the presence of polluted atmosphere can cause damage to the exterior surface of the building. So if the location of the building is near the industrial area and the industrial area do not have any quality control, dia lepaskan gas yang very toxic, so you can have building defects as well. Construction materials. Understanding the nature of building materials is important so that proper material handlings and storage could be applied to ensure that the quality of these materials are taken care of. So if you have materials on the site, if it's a new building, you may want to keep some of the materials nicely so they are not defective bila you pasang. Ini bila nak pasang tiles dah bercala-cala sebab you main buang je, ataupun nak pasang tiles dia dah mula chipping, like dia dah mula pecah-pecah kat tepi tu. So bila you pasang pun dia jadi macam tak cantik lah sebab dia dah pecah-pecah. Okay. So this is on the site, maknanya during construction. Architects, contractors, engineers and those involved in building management should be familiar with the building materials in common use and have deeper understanding into the proper techniques or preservation of the materials and structures. So if you have timber and steel and concrete, you have to treat each of these material differently at the site. But if we are talking about the manufacturers, construction materials sometimes also already have the defects when you order them. That's why when you are at the site, when you work next semester, not next semester, next 2 semesters, when you are at the site, you need to check the DO, delivery order. You need to check carefully the quantity, the quality, before you actually bring down the materials from the lorry. Okay, so because we do not want defective materials on the site, so manufacturers also can have defects when they manufacture the products. Building type and change in use. So changes of usage and spaces of building will have some effect on the existing structure. Buildings were built to only hold certain loads and sometimes may not withstand additional loads. Buildings converted into either commercial or office purposes will need additional services component, like air conditioning system. In certain cases, air conditioning units were placed improperly. This not only affects the appearance of your building, but intervenes with the existing fabric, particularly when ducts are running in full view of the ceiling. Now, what it's saying here is, if you look at my lecture on yesterday, temporary works, so we have we have what we call shoring. So I mentioned in that video that we use shoring when we do renovation and refurbishment. So refurbishment is when you change the use of the building daripada rumah jadi kedai. So of course when daripada rumah jadi kedai, kalau rumah we want more privacy, isn't it? But if you change it to a shop, then you would want people to see your shop. You want customer to recognize you. So you want to be less privacy. You want to change the face of the building. Daripada batu bata, you nak jadikan dia glass so that people can see. Daripada ada gate yang tinggi-tinggi, fence yang tinggi-tinggi, you want to reduce it ataupun eliminate terus. Okay. So when you change you may have defects because dulu dalam rumah tu orang yang duduk. But now because you have changed it to shop, maybe that shop you want to use it for car showroom, like in Bangsa, I've mentioned that before. Sebelah petrol station tu dekat Jalan Makruf. So they need to add bigger foundations, more foundations. They need to analyze the structures because then bila rumah, the load is different, bila kedai, load is different. So if you don't actually take care of the type of the function or types of the building, then you will have more defects. You dah pasang glass, you never take care of the foundation, you letak kereta, tiba-tiba glass tu retak. Glass tu can meletup or pecah, crack dan hancur because you have settlement. You have building settlement. The building cannot hold the load anymore. And you can actually do underpinning. Underpinning I will cover next week with another class, 3L, and I will publish that in my Facebook. Sorry, not Facebook, YouTube. Maintenance of building. Maintenance has role in preventing building defects, securing the general structural stability and life of the building, to ensure that they can function and perform as efficiently and as effectively. Inspection should be carried out to check for any signs of abnormal deteriorations, main structural elements, including foundations, wall and roofs, and other common building problems. So that's why when you see a building being left abandoned, nampak macam rumah hantu kan, makin lama makin buruk, tiba-tiba, glass pecah, tingkap pecah, itu pecah, and we're wondering why is it when people are living in that house is okay, it looks nice. But when the house is empty, then you have so many defects, so many problems. What can cause that? I know you guys tengok di box what these prints mean or something. They are the color of defects on the wall. Have anyone seen that video? He has like green and orangey color of surface defects at his house. So I do not know what's the problem. I need to see whether it comes from the defect itself, from the weather, or is it from the maintenance, or is it from something else. But I never thought before that a defect can caused by this spirit, negative spirits. So
I believe the book box is fake lah, doctor.
is it really fake? But
Ya, saya pun tengok juga research pasal di book box ni. Ada certain orang apa entah nama dia dah 2 minggu dah saya tengok video tu. Orang tu kata dia buat di book box tu untuk nak dapatkan perhatian orang ramai je, doktor.
maybe
Ha.
we don't know. So we have to study. I want to see I want to see the defects, the green and the orange color that he has. You realize that yang dia tunjuk ada ustaz tu datang tengok at the corner of the
I
house.
know, ya, saya pun perasan, doktor. Saya rasa lah in my pendapat lah,
Opinion.
benda tu
Yeah.
kacau-kacau Prince Smith punya, like, benda tu buat gangguan lah sebab Prince Smith, like, macam mana dia nak tahu sangat pasal benda tu dan benda tu datang like bukan datang daripada di book box. It comes from his surrounding. Sebab benda ni jin kan kita tak boleh tahu dekat mana.
Okay. So that's
Hmm.
insightful. So we have a friend of yours who believe that it is made up. So
Yeah.
no, I have no comment about that. But what I'm saying is, I really don't know what type. I mean, like we can see it's like fungus, isn't it? Like it's greenish and orangey. It looks like fungal attack to me. But it would be great if someone can analyze what type of apa tu defect that he has at his house. But bila I ajar, we do not have holy spirits can affect the defects. We don't take that in the theory. Okay, so maintenance is one. It depends on how, because when you have people in the house, you will have people cleaning the house. Kalau pintu kotor, you will have someone wipe it. But if you leave it, sometimes a small defect, like you can have maybe a dent, like a crack, but nobody is taking care of the crack, then the crack can become bigger because then maybe air lalu dalam crack tu. It can happen. So many things can happen. So we need to diagnose what actually caused the defect, right? So maintenance is important. So we should do regular checkup at our house. Like at my house now, I have several big defects, especially when it rains. I have rain water coming through dekat I punya plug in the kitchen. So it just, I don't know where it comes from, tapi I think from the roof. It only happened on like certain pattern of the rain and wind. So when the wind blows, probably on the west side, I won't get that. But if the wind blows on the east side, I will get water seeping through from the roof, and it actually use the apa tu dia punya trunk, electric trunk, dan I get water dekat I punya plug yang you pakai socket tu, dekat situ keluar air. I have the video. I should have included that video here, but we'll see if I can find it. I'll just forward it. Right. The next one is faulty design. Design error is often made usually in an effort to save initial construction costs, reducing the size of column, reinforcement bars, and foundations. So this design error, when they reduce the size of column, reinforcement, and foundation, this is structural design error. But sometimes I also know we have, for example, we have proper design. It's already designed properly. But during construction, the contractor, who are very unethical, they would reduce the size of the foundations because these things are underneath, dekat dalam ground, so people don't see, so they can seal. So I have seen some cases like that. Contractors patutnya letak 4 points of piling point, but they reduce it to 3 points, and they said, oh, that's all right because this area, the ground is really strong. So but the developer didn't know about that. It was just the contractor who was unethical. Right, so that is more on the structural, but we also have architectural design errors. The jointings of roof. Do you know, bila architect design roof, dia punya jointings are not well, and then we have in Malaysia, because the rain is heavy and we have rain throughout the year, we have problem with jointings. Ada je air masuk lah, bocor lah, lembab lah, dinding ni lah. So architects also sometimes make mistake by having design errors, not only structural, but we also have architectural design defects. We also have mechanical design defect. I'm now actually looking at one case of, it's a real case, it's an ongoing case, but we are narrowing down the causes of the defect. So the defect is a building. How do I explain this? Okay, do you know the suspended slab? It's not on the ground, yeah? It's on the first floor. So the slab, the floor slab of the first floor, underneath, maknanya ceiling of the ground floor. If you look up, it's like your ceiling. So it's concrete ceiling. They don't have plastered ceiling to cover the the slab, so we can actually see the slab. Banyak air dekat bawah tu. It was so damp, not only damp, but you can see titisan air dekat slab. Like you can actually collect it. The condensation is really, really bad. So now me and my friend are looking into this case. My friend is an expert. I think he wouldn't mind if I mention his name and publish on YouTube. His name is Dr. Emmanuel Essa, no, Associate Professor Emmanuel Essa from the University of Reading. So at first, when we saw the pictures of this building, we thought, okay, maybe from the ground, maybe there's like capillary action daripada bawah, dia masuk di dalam, because we can see the jointings, the mortar jointings, antara batu-bata dengan batu-bata, you have mortar, right? So that mortars actually have eroded. So we thought at first it's because of the erosion. So I requested for them to check, but actually it not only affected one room, they have about 8 rooms of that kind of defect. And the building is new. To be surprised, it's only about one year plus, about 1.5 years probably. No, 1 tahun 9 bulan, 1 year and 9 months, about that age. So we listed out the possibilities of the causes. What can actually make that slab soaking wet? We reduce it to 3 factors. And lastly, when we actually ask questions, we look at the data, we are still actually analyzing it. We cannot actually make conclusions, oh yeah, it's because of this thing. But this is our initial opinion. This is our initial opinion. I cannot prove it now. So inshallah, if I can prove it, if we can like analyze it, I'll let you guys know what actually happened to that building. So what we are thinking now is because of the faulty mechanical design of the building. So you can have structural faulty design, you can have architectural, you also can have faulty design of mechanical elements. So the AHU unit, you have learned what is the AHU unit. The aircon unit, the mechanical ventilation, the design of them, and because Malaysia, the humidity is high. You just imagine the humidity level, the relative humidity of the space inside the building which have been affected can go up to a maximum of 99%. You just bayangkan macam you duduk dalam sauna, it's really wet even when you're in the room. So that's not good because not only the building is sick, it makes you sick as well. If you just imagine kalau you ada semput, you duduk kat dalam tu with high humidity, you think you would be okay to just stay in that room for like 8 hours a day. Maybe you work in that place for 8 hours. You wouldn't want to be in that room like really wet. 99% kalau aircon dia tak berjalan. Kalau aircon dia berjalan, is about 70 to 80% of ni humidity, kelembapan dalam bangunan. Right, so yeah, it says here can also results of misjudgment, leading to assumption. You make wrong decisions. These are all related to the design, right? Faulty construction could cause building collapse and also main causes for building defects and failure cases. The contractors tend to use lower grades materials, concrete and method that are not according to the specifications. So this is not, like I mentioned, during construction. I have seen several cases and I am also writing a paper now regarding, it's a very simple paper about drainage system, and the contractor actually reduced the materials, the use of materials. Okay, so it's a great exposure for the students and also for the contractors. So I'm trying to relate that with the law, because when things are not being built according to the specifications, then it can fall under the breach of contract, because all construction projects, we have contract. And if you don't follow the specification, it means you have breached the contract, but it also depends on what does it mean you don't follow the specification. If you actually do the work, but it's very low quality, it means you are following the specifications. But now, these people, contractors, they do not build according to the specification. Not only, we are not talking about the quality now, but just like I mentioned, instead of 4 points, the contractor only constructed like 3 points. Instead of, you have the ground floor slab, concrete. You've learned this in building construction semester 1. So you have the slab, and on top of the slab, normally we have the concrete screeding, yeah? But this contractor, I knew he didn't put the screed. He's supposed to put the screed, but he did not. He wanted to save a few pounds, and he he eliminated that screed, and he just laid the, what do you call this? Tiles. So they didn't have the screed, but they just put the tiles on the concrete. And we know concrete shrinked and expand over years. And if you don't have mortars or like screeding on top, so it will affect on the tiles. And do you know Puan Jamia? Puan Jamia is on her study leave now. Her house, after the defect liability period, after 2 years, the tiles popped out. It's like dia bunyi, and then dia punya tiles meletup, bukan meletup pecah tu, but dia terangkap pop 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 pop. So she told me that when that happened, they were sleeping in the night and they heard like a gas sound, and they heard the popping voice, like pop 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 pop, like popcorn probably. I don't know, but that's how she described. And they checked, the tiles actually ternaik, semua tiles tu ternaik. So bila you pijak tiles tu, dia on. Dia macam, like, how do you say, macam, I don't know, so I hope you can imagine. So there are many causes of that. One of it is because the missing element, that is screeding. So we do not know what actually is the main cause of a house, because we didn't actually collect the data. So we just assume it's because of missing screeding, or maybe because of the groundwater, or because of, some building settlement. We don't know. Lack of supervision. Inadequate supervision is believed to be one of the major causes of defects and rework. Experienced and well-trained supervisors have an important role in minimizing construction defects. The performance of supervisors depends on skilled communication with individual workers and planning and directing the work. So if you are the site supervisor, you don't control, you don't look, pukul 11, pukul 10 baru nak masuk, and 11 you go out and have tea, you just let the, workers, although they are skilled workers, they are not educated like us. They are not educated like supervisors. And supervisors are needed at the site to ensure that the size, the measurements, the quality, the method of constructions, they are all within what have been expected by the client. So many of the defects are because of lack supervision. But I've seen a site, they had a supervisor from the client side. So the supervisor just stopped for like 12 o'clock. He went for lunch. The contractor already did some unethical things, like hide things, they took out things, they just within that lunchtime. So contractors are very smart, like people say liars are like liars, they are very creative, because they need to use their one side of brain more, so they need to create things, because that's why I say they are creative. They can cheat. Right, examples of building defects. So we can have structural defects, column crack, dia punya beam crack, defective or faulty electric wiring and lighting. Yes, when I moved in this house, they didn't have the earth wire. And I bought a fridge, and after like a month, the fridge went off after a thunder. And I contacted the seller. The seller came here, they checked, and they said it's actually not because of their fridge, but it was because of the thunder, and your house do not have this earth wire or something. So I'm not really good with electrical things. So because that time was still in the DLP, so I asked them to come and check, and they said, yeah, that wire is missing. So the developer took the responsibility, and they added the green color wire, and it was so messy up there. I've been told they didn't put the wires in conduits. They didn't do that, so the wires were all over. So the developers checked, and they actually rectified the defect. I also had problem with what? Yang itu je lah kot. Yang itu. But you can have faulty electric wiring. So when you move out, when you move in a new place, make sure you check your wirings. The third one is defective or faulty plumbing. This is pain in the neck, because plumbing is normally underneath, it's sealed. So if you have problem, then it will take years. Like Dr. Asmat's house, she has problem with the plumbing and the service hole, the level of the, you have gradient of the plumbing of the pipings underneath. She didn't have that, so it was like straight. That's what the contractor told. She has problem now. She had to hack the floor from the house. They needed to cut. They actually cut the, how do I say, that plumbing system's line. So dia terpaksa pecahkan and buat baru. Okay, dan banyak cost. It wasted money, wasted time. Inadequate or faulty drainage system. Drainage may look simple to you, alah longkang je, but drainage can actually help you to prevent flood. That's what happened dekat Kelantan, Terengganu. I've mentioned that when I give lecture on drainage. Inadequate or faulty ventilation, cooling or heating system. Like I mentioned, the case that we are looking now. So we also think that lack of proper ventilation, mechanical ventilation, because that room you cannot have a natural ventilation because it's been used by it's actually I do not know if I can mention, but they need to have mechanical ventilations and we think it's not enough. Inadequate insulation or soundproofing. I added a conservatory in front of my house. I use metal deck and I use a metal ceiling in between the deck ataupun roof finishes and the ceiling. I should have put insulation. I've told my contractor, I said, put the one that you have the yellow one, the insulation. And he was like, no, you don't need that. You know, it's not going to be hot. I said, of course it's going to be hot. And he said, because of the ceiling, you won't feel hot. And I was like, are you sure? Because I was thinking the ceiling is also metal. Kalau you pergi dekat macam bangun macam like to the petrol stations, normally they have this metal ceilings. And he ignored me. He didn't put the insulation and he's like, oh, do you know that insulation is additional work and we need to add time. Sedangkan benda tu senang je. It's just like they should just roll it. And I regret I didn't actually stand on my decision. And now that room in the morning is okay, tapi when it's in the afternoon, when the sun is at the top of your head, it's really warm in this room, in my conservatory because of the sun. So now I have to do more work. I need to go and find the aluminium foil and blah, blah, blah to rectify the defects. And I blame myself because I listened to the contractor. I shouldn't have listened to him. I should just have put the insulation. So inadequate insulation is a defect. So that room I can say it's a defective because I didn't put the insulations. Inadequate fire protection or suppression system. Dry rot, wood rot, mold, fungus, termites, damage caused by land movement or earth settlement. These can all cause damages to the building. Right, examples of defects on materials. Just now we have mentioned that materials, we can have defects on materials. So in constructions, we use timber, concrete, and steel. So for timber, you have learned this in your subject, in one of your subjects, materials, building materials. So examples of defects on timber, you can have fungus attack, you can have excessive moisture will lead to rotting, growth of mold and mildew, exposure to sunlight, dimensional changes, warping and discoloration. Dia boleh terpiuh, dia boleh menggeleding, you know, all those sorts yang you have actually learned. Exposure to extremes in climate conditions will produce cracks, splits, warping, raised grain, poor paint holding properties. So, because defects you need to analyze, and defects you couldn't just categorize that as, okay, this is a timber defect, okay, this is a concrete defects, because you have different categories then. You have structural defects, you have non-structural defects, you have latent defects, patent defects. So you really need to, what you have to do when you go for practical, normally I can say quite a lot of students, they have to handle the defects at the sites when they do their practical training. And when you do the practical training, bila you record the defects, you have to find the cause. For example, yang ini paint tercabut, so you have to understand what are the causes, what can make this paint peeled off. So then remember the causes I've mentioned just now, that 8 causes. You cuba check one by one. Is it because of the weather? Is it because of the location of the building? Is it near the sea? Is it because of what else just now? The type of the building? Is it because the quality of the paint? So you have to check one by one, like all the 8 causes for each of the defects. Okay, then you can check, you can categorize that, okay, because this is timber, the way they react is different from steel. So steel probably more durable than timber. In terms of weather effect, like they can withhold the weather better than the timber. But it depends also on what type of timber. You have class A, class B, class C, you have the hardwood or medium hardwood, or you have the softwood. So softwood, they are less durable as compared to the hardwood. Okay, so you have different types of defects, and these have been covered in material subjects, I believe. Cupping, split, you can read more if you want to refresh the notes. Wood destroying fungi, serious damage. The effect depends on the durability of the species of timber, like I've mentioned, hardwood, medium wood, or softwood. Conditions that are likely to promote decay, high atmospheric humidity. So when the place is really damp, wet, then you will have timber yang makin lama makin tengok kecil ataupun reput. Okay. High moisture content in the timber, prolonged wetting, there is contact with the ground or in exposed situations subject to continual wetting, or joints and laps where evaporation is slow. So bila air dah masuk dalam kayu, but maybe you only cover the bottom part. You tanamkan bottom part tu with concrete, tapi atas tu you did not cover with paint ke, you did not cover with something else. Lepas tu air tu akan serap masuk ke kayu daripada atas dan dia duduk pula sampai ke bawah. So yang you tanam dalam konkrit ataupun yang you tanam dalam tanah tu akan menjadi lebih teruk daripada yang dekat atas, because dekat atas tu once they absorb the water, because they are exposed, they can release the water easily. But with the wood that you have covered with concrete, water senang masuk, but it's hard for the water to evaporate out because of the concrete yang dah cover. Okay. If non-durable timbers have to be used, they must be treated with apa tu, macam kalau you pergi kilang kayu ataupun you belajar sebab kayu and materials, they have preservatives, they have macam dipanggil ubat. Kalau you beli kayu dekat kilang pun, they will ask you, do you want treated timber or do you want untreated timber? So because I bought a lot of woods for a construction from a factory, so I always take the treated timbers, because I realized when I use the treated timbers, they are better, they're in quality, and even less fungal attack. Actually, I don't have fungal attack for the treated timbers. Okay, adequate soil drainage and roof drainage should be provided to avoid prolonged wetting on timber. Termites, you kena letak ubat termites lah, ataupun termite can eat woods kan, so you have to do apa tu dia panggil pest control. One element common to a hospitable environment for insect infestation is moisture. Diorang suka tempat yang lembab-lembab. Okay, so that's we have to see whether this is because of the termite or is it because of the water, because kat bawah kan, dia dekat bawah, so bila air turun kat bawah, maybe dekat sini air dah banyak, so we have to actually see the defects ourselves and diagnose them. This is kayu yang dah reput. it looks to me like it's been attacked by the termites. My mom is really good to see whether it's termite or it's just the moisture, because orang dulu kan pakai kayu kan, dia tengok sekali imbas je, ni ada anai-anai ni. They can actually see the trail of the termites. So in Malaysia we have that problem a lot, and ants as well, and cockroaches lagi. Okay. And ants also, they like to live in the electrical socket, sebab dalam socket tu kan ada lubang kan, yang you punya Swiss semua tu. So sometimes like our farm, we have defective switch. Bila buka dalam tu penuh dengan sarang semut. They like to duduk dalam tu, make a house there. Okay, termite. Prevention methods, you have to control the moisture, provide shades and protection, use paint, surface treatment, treat with suitable timber preservative, racun, dalam timber. Kalau dekat our farm, we put, this is like traditional method, we use the tar, and minyak hitam tu kita pakai dan sapu dekat kayu. And some people said, oh, you know, minyak hitam, like this tar, doesn't really help because it's not type of preservation. But we've used some parts, and some other parts we didn't use. The parts that we didn't use were attacked by the termites, and the part that we used are still okay. So I would assume that the termites do not like the smell of the tar, maybe. I don't know. I never analyzed that. Right, concrete. Portland cement products are widely used in hot countries and subject to little deterioration that can be attributed to, especially to the climate. So during construction, if like in Malaysia, when we pour the concrete, tiba-tiba hujan, like dogs and cats, like it's really heavy. So when you do concreting works, you have to pick a day that you think, okay, maybe you can see the weather forecast, that it's going to be sunny and not rainy, because then it will make your concrete defects. In KLCC, for example, if you have seen the video, they have already poured large amount of concrete. They have leveled, tiba-tiba hujan lebat. It was raining really bad, and they had to use the canvas to cover the concrete area. So that was a good decision, supaya dia tak merosakkan konkrit, sebab bila air masuk dalam konkrit nanti dia akan lari. So bila dia lari, dia akan bawa simen tu sekali lari keluar. So yang tinggal pasir dengan batu je, you punya simen dah kurang. So the grade of the concrete will be reduced with running surface rain on wet concrete. Right, so that's concreting work. Yeah. Even if it's too hot, you cannot just expose the concrete to a very hot sun, because then dia cepat mengecut. You know, it shrinks really fast. The water evaporate, and the shrinkage rate will happen really fast, and it can cause cracks. So hujan lebat pun tak boleh, panas sangat pun tak boleh. So if it's too hot, you may need to cover your concrete area with a wet blanket, okay, or you need to spray the surface quite frequently. So we have disintegration, discoloration, spalling, corrosion of reinforcement, and algae growth. Actinic action, optical radiation energy absorbed by the materials, which lead to biological and chemical reaction. So they absorb the radiation, they absorb the water, and you have chemical in the concrete, and it can cause a different reaction. The heating effect causing expansion of building materials during daytime and contraction during the night. So this can cause cracking and disintegration. So if you see like road works, they will have like jointings to provide expansion and contraction, because concrete itu sifat dia for the lifetime. That's the characteristic for the lifetime. They will expand and shrink every day. So this looks more like spalling to me. This doesn't look cracked to me, but it says here crack. So spalling is like concrete dia jadi macam rapuh. Okay. These are cracks and spalling as well. Building cracks here. So when we look at the cracks, we cannot see any plastering here. We can see that this is a pure structural element. So when this crack, I can say that this is a structural defect because this is on the structure. I don't know what this is, but it looks like a structure to me. So this is spalling, dia merapuh. Discoloration, there must be something that caused discoloration. Sometimes because of you punya hot joints and cold joints, maybe this one different batch and this one is different batch. Or sometimes maybe you have different chemicals, you have reaction here. Discoloration. Spalling, you have when you have crack, lepas tu air pula masuk. Bila air masuk, dia akan menjadikan steel tu karat, corrode, okay? So the water seeps through, meresap, dia jalan, tak adalah dia ada kaki, dia meresap, and it will cause corroding reinforcement steel, and it will build up corrosion products, it will build up different chemicals, and then it will result in concrete spalling. It can crack and it can spall. I've seen this in Malaysia. I've seen a few. Very rare we have this. But in Egypt, when I went there, I lived in a student house with my niece. And in the toilet, the spalling was really bad. It was really bad. And not only that house, I went to another house, they had the same problem. I went to a shop, it's like common. I've seen it even though I was not there, I was only there for like a week, so I can see already a few cases of corroding reinforcement steel and concrete spalling. So this is the concrete spalling and corrosion of the bar. Corrosion of reinforcement, poor water quality, poor storage, concrete cracks, high impermeability, corrosion will take place and cause spalling of the concrete, like I explained just now. So that's the crack. And air masuk. So when air masuk, it caused the reinforcement bar to corrode. That's why when you learn in semester 1, we always say you have to, tahu tak, you put the spacer bar. You ingat tak? Not spacer bar, sorry. You put that thing, the white thing, they call it tahu at the construction site. Here they call it spacer block, the white one, supaya you punya concrete tu ternaik atas. So when you pour concrete, you punya reinforcement bar akan duduk tengah-tengah. You've learned that kan? You letak. But some site diorang tak guna, but tu diorang ambil batu-batu kerikil je, dia letak dekat bawah tu. Jimat kan, diorang tak nak beli tahu tu. Diorang nak save the money, so they take aggregate, big aggregates, and they will just tie it on the bottom of the rebar. Then you can have a nice concrete cover over the reinforcement bar. Algae grows on concrete in tropical areas of high rainfall like Malaysia. Concrete and other cement products such as tiles and fiber cement sheets are particularly susceptible to blanketing of exposure surface by algae. In Malaysia, we have fungal attack. Yang biasa kita tengok, the green one, isn't it? On the external wall. Normally it's at the external wall because of the water. We rarely have the blackening of the exposed surface. Whereas when I was in the UK, my main problem in that house was the black fungal attack on the wall. Dekat Malaysia kita banyak habuk kan, ni habuk ni ada sawang ni, it's just easy for us. kita ambil penyapu ke apa, kita boleh buang sawang. But in the UK, I had problem because of the humidity or because of the weather, we have the blackening, like it's black. Kalau you lap pun nanti you punya wall semua jadi black. So I had to use chemical to kill the fungus dulu, spray. Lepas tu then I wipe them off. It's because of the humidity at that place, in my place. And not only my place, but when I went to my friends, they complained the same thing. So it was common there. As compared to Malaysia, we don't really have that black fungus. We maybe have, but very, very small. So we normally have this algae, the green one, kan dekat luar. Dia dah jadi macam lumut sebab dia ada air, dia hidup. Okay, what's that? So the pictures aren't clear, but these are all fungal attack. This green one. Do you know in the Prince Mead's house, he has the green one, so I suspect the defects that he has is the fungal attack. But the orange one is maybe different types of fungus he has there, because I think his house is quite remote, at the remote area. Maybe he has that dampness, high damp. I don't know. So they have this, the yellow one. So Prince Mead has the orange one. So that's a different type of fungus. Painting with oil-bound or cement paints defects on the onset of the staining, but under severe condition, it usually appearing after about 3 years. So for the algae or for the fungus attack, it doesn't really make the building weak, but it make the building sick. And when you live in a sick building, you can become sick. So I'm not saying that this algae or fungus can make the building become weak and then can collapse. They are not like that. But when you live in that house, you can have many problems. Like you can have skin problems, you can have lung problems, kuman, you can have like maybe you punya kepala naik kelimomo. It's more on you because the building is sick. It will make you sick. Okay. So normally we just wash it off. We use chemicals to kill them. Prevention method, ensure concrete quality, suitable concrete grade, high quality of workmanship, apply surface treatment or finishes. To ensure good quality of concrete, fresh water. These are all things that you have learned in your subject semester 1 or 2, I can't remember, in construction materials. So when they mix the concrete, they taught you what type of water you can use, what type of water you cannot use. Okay, that have been taught, and suitable water, compaction, proper curing. How I've mentioned, we can categorize the building defects into different categories. Like here now, we can say it's structural or non-structural. So if it's structural defects, it's dangerous. But if it's non-structural, like fungal attacks, like painting peelings off, it's not, it's dangerous to the health. So both are dangerous, but different types of risk. Okay, this one structural defects can cause death, but non-structural defects, people say, oh yeah, because it's just non-structural, that's fine, it cannot cause death. Well, it can actually cause death if your immune system is weak, for example, and you cannot be exposed to this type of fungus, and then it attacks you, you've got allergic, and it attacks blah, 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 and then you can, because diseases kill. So both defects, both types of defects are very risky. Structural defects is defined as actual physical damage to the designated load-bearing elements of buildings like columns and beams, and it caused failure, building collapse, building settled, cracks. So the buildings become unsafe. So this is really, really, how do I say, this is horrible because you've got this, this is cable, by the way. This is not reinforcement bar, so they probably use the betul. So dia crack. So bila dia crack kat sini, the load's supposed to be transferred horizontally. Tapi bila sampai dekat sini, if you take the reader, the load reader, you akan dapat bacaan dia dekat sini kosong. Load tu tak akan transfer lagi. So dia tersangkut. So bila dia tak akan transfer, dia akan lalulah kat mana-mana yang ada. So dekat sini akan jadi weak. Bila dia weak, dia boleh patah. Bila patah, yang atas ni tak ada support dan atas ni pun akan jatuh, runtuh. Bila runtuh, the whole building ada possibility untuk collapse. Just because of this small one. Ini adalah load bearing wall. Sama juga failure dekat sini. Okay, ini column crack, bahaya. So they have to like underpin. Dia kena support dulu bangunan ni. Dia kena support dulu by using shoring ataupun relevant support like hydraulic jack, and they have to redo this again. Ini adalah akibat apabila they have structural defects. Structural defects of bangunan Perbadanan Taman Negeri Perak under construction. So the whole building run up daripada tinggi macam tu sampai tak ada apa. Zainal Abidin Stadium, part of the roof collapsed because structural defects or failures. Non-structural defects, imperfection in non-structural components, non-load-bearing building elements, imperfection in building works, mortar works, finishes, doors, window fixtures, and cosmetic defects. So this is plastering defect. However, I cannot say that this is plastering defect because the crack looks big to me. So I need to measure how deep the crack is, because now the note is saying that it's plastering defects. Normally plastering defects, what you can see is what we call these lines, it's like very thin lines, but this is big lines. Daripada pintu sini, it looks to me that this building has settlement sebab dia crack daripada sini, but I'm just saying it, I don't know. So when you have crack like this, you have to actually measure like how deep is the crack. Is it only affecting the plastering, or actually you punya batu-bata pun dalam tu dah mula terkoyak. So I would say terkoyak lah sebab dia dah mula berpisah. So kalau dia dah mula berpisah, you have this kind of crack, most probably is your building is settling. Dia ada macam settlement. Dia macam termendap sikit ke. Okay, so you need to check. This also looks like a big crack to me. Not the fine lines. Yang ini nampak macam, this one looks like plastering defects ataupun plastering defects. Maybe this one is also plastering defects. You need to actually hack and see how big or how deep is the crack. Painting defects, yeah. So you can have the peeling off, you can have this low quality of painting, you have different layers, you have too thick. You paint the undercoat, lepas tu you paint the top coat, you buat terlalu banyak coating pun boleh jadi defect because it's too thick, nanti boleh jadi kendut-kendut macam tu. Ni macam apa tu, macam papadum, macam-macam lah rupa yang ada, so dia peel semua tu. So ini kayu yang dia menggelending macam ni. Why? If you ask me, I don't know. It can be because of the weather, because of the water, it can be because of the material itself, it can be because of settlement. Kalau tu mesti ada crack kat sini. So nampaknya dekat sini je yang dia tercabut. Maybe poor workmanship. So I don't know, but there's a defect there. Okay, so we've mentioned just now we have different types of common defects. Analysis examples, actually ni E dah tertinggal. Analysis examples of common defects. The first one is erosion of mortar joints. So mortar joints is you have mortar joints in between two bricks. So if you have bricks, you will have mortar joints. Itu maksudnya mortar joints. So basically, the main function of mortar joints is to even out irregularities of individual blocks, whether they are of stones or bricks or blocks. At the same time, it provides some adhesions between the blocks. So dia macam gum, dekatkan, lepas tu dia kena straight. So antara jointings ni boleh jadi erode, means dia terhakis. Decayed mortars can be removed forcibly by the use of mechanical disc or carefully racked out by using a knife and spike manually. So you have to identify which area have the erosions, but if you rectify the problem without identifying what and why is it happening, even after the rectification, you may have the same problem. Like I've mentioned just now, in the current building that we are looking into, the affected room was only 2, but now they have 8 affected rooms where they have this really high humidity. So they've made decision, they've taken a solution, they decontaminate the aircon system, they've done several things to rectify the problems, and they thought they can reduce the humidity, but they couldn't reduce the humidity because now they do not know what is the main cause of the defect. And we are looking into it because we also do not know which part. If we say, because we make initial conclusion that the design is not right, so now we need to see how is it designed, what's wrong with the design, and we need to tackle that problem first before we actually rectify the work. Causes of mortar joints, kan I cakap ada 8 causes just now earlier, so it can be because of the weathering. So you have acidic rain, maknanya bila hujan turun, dia campur because the area is polluted, location of the building again. So maybe because the area is polluted, you have rain and you have acidic rain and it go through your wall, dia masuk dalam and it it makes your mortar joints erode because in the mortar itself you have different chemicals and you have acidic rains and different chemicals combined and you have benda yang boleh terhakis, kan acidic menghakis. So unaccommodated building movement, maybe mungkin you punya mortar tu terhakis because you have movement. So when you have movement, the building cracks. Betul tak? So when you have the building cracks, macam saya cakap tadi, batu bata terkoyak. So batu bata terkoyak means simply means the additions or the mortar joints lost. You lost them. Dia dah hilang, dia dah jatuh, dia dah pergi somewhere, eroded maybe. So influence of freeze cycle or thaw cycle. So when you have water seep through, lepas tu in countries that have freezing temperature, water tu can freeze, and bila freeze, you know water when they freeze dia kembang, betul tak? Air is unique daripada material yang lain, bila sejuk dia kembang, bila panas dia kuncup. Konkrit pula bila dia panas dia kembang, bila sejuk dia kuncup. So because of that freezing cycle, air itu mengembang dan dia boleh memecahkan that mortar joint. Okay. Weathering action is inevitable. Wind and rains erode mortars, especially acid rains. I've explained just now. On extreme exposures, the mortar joints can be weathered away to a depth of several inches. You can have water masuk dalam tu, lepas tu besar. Usually, weathering of mortar is accompanied by deterioration of masonry. Building movement, another type. Just now I've already explained, macam I cakap, ada settlement building terkoyak could caused by wind, thermal cycling, and masonry expansion and contraction due to moisture absorption. When movement or uneven settling of a building foundation or wall, cracking of the masonry, usually at mortar joints, will occur. Repeated thermal cycling causes the masonry to expand and contract, breaking the bonds between the mortar and the unit. So in Malaysia, we normally have plastering, and plastering is a finishes that can actually protect your mortar joints. But in abroad. I can say most buildings in the UK, in Europe, they have this engineering bricks. They have exposed bricks. They have facing bricks that really look nice on the wall. So basically, they have the mortar joints exposed to the weather. In Malaysia, we have plastering. Most of our buildings, I can say almost all, uh, even if we have that facing brick look, sometimes nampak je macam bricks, but it's actually finishes. It's type of tiles that looks like bricks. So it protects your mortar joints. That's the pros of having plastering and building facades on your on your bricks. Influence of the phase or thaw cycle, I've explained this as well. So they can have spalling, dia mereput juga. Dampness, I have given you a case yang macam I cakap, humidity level is really high. So dampness can be a serious matter, particularly to buildings located near water sources. We have checked the building external, we have checked whether there are any lake nearby. No, we have checked what was the original use of the land. Was it used for landfilling ke, tempat sampah ke? Was it apa tu? Was it a lake that have been stabilized ataupun have been apa tu yang dia dah buat soil stabilization and so on. Was it, but the building tu, no, it's not because of the location of the building. The main causes of dampness is water penetration into building through walls, through capillaries or cracks. Macam I cakap tadi, air berjalan, dia meresap, dia pergi ke atas. Air tak adalah jalan ke atas, melawan gravity, but dia meresap. Leaking gutters or downpipes, defective drains, burst plumbing, and condensation due to inadequate ventilation. We have looked at the gutters. We have actually asked for the services pipeline. So we thought that room, the piping has burst, meaning pipe tu pecah kat dalam lantai. So when you have burst pipe bocor ke apa, then you can have wet slab. But the services are not in the slab. The services, water pipeline, air conditioning were all suspended underneath because the slab is a precast slab. So they don't have any services dekat dalam precast slab tu. We have checked. So we were like, okay, this is not because of the capillary. This is not because of this. This is not because of the it's condensation is some point, yeah. Is it because of the burst plumbing? Then we realize it's actually the mechanical, the air conditioning, the ventilation. So it's there. So due to inadequate ventilation. So not only inadequate ventilation, but also poor design of mechanical appliances, aircon, dia punya ducting, AHU units and so on. Right, so that's it. Thank you. Stop recording.